In this lesson, I'll take the planes I've mapped with my storyboard elements, scale them, space them out in depth, and animate a camera through to get my storyboard animatic, and actually a previs animation, going. To start, I'm going to pick my sky and scale it up fairly big. As long as I'm using the uniform scale, I won't distort the texture. As we're working in planes, we may want to try for accurate scale, and sometimes we may want to get the motion right first. I'll do the same with my city. And also, I'll go into a perspective, hit W for move, and start to space these elements out in depth, so that as I pan away from it, I'm doing a dolly back actually in my camera is the right term, past the city to reveal the eco sitting on the road, I'll get the correct depth. I'll repeat this with my other elements and show the stacked layers when I'm done. I've taken the rest of my elements and scaled them up and spaced them out. I'm ready to get my camera in. What I'd like to start with is a full view of my city in the background and dolly back to reveal in the end the eco standing on the road. To start then, I'm going to hide my other elements by selecting them and pressing Ctrl H, and then I'll get my camera created. Notice also, I've gone to the render settings, and under image size I've chosen the HD 720 preset. This will be useful when I turn on the resolution gate in my camera in a minute, and helps me frame exactly what will be in the rendering. I'll create a free camera for this one by choosing Create, Cameras, Camera. The first thing I always do with a camera is press Ctrl A to go to the attribute editor and scroll all the way down to Object Display in the Shape node for the camera. I like to make the locator scale bigger so I can actually see the icon. Now I'm ready to get the camera in my establishing position. I'll choose Panels, Perspective, Camera, and get the camera in the right place. I'll press Ctrl A to switch back to the channel box, and up on the top menu, turn on the resolution gate. Now I can see exactly what's going to be in the frame. I'll get this camera where I want it to start. I'd like to have my skyline fairly filling the view. I can scale out the sky later. This will be my starting position for my camera. I'm going to show my timeline again by choosing Display, UI Elements, Time Slider, and Display, UI Elements, Range Slider. I'd like this shot to take place over 3 to 4 seconds. So I'm going to give myself here 72 frames, or 3 seconds at 24 frames per second. With the camera selected, I'll press Shift-W and Shift-E to key, move, and rotate. I don't want to scale the camera, or key a scale, because that can lead to some very awkward things in terms of moving and viewing through the camera. Now I'm ready to get the rest of my elements in. I'll switch to my perspective view so I can see my camera and test out pulling this camera back, see how the speed feels. I'll go over to frame 72, pull the camera straight back, and press Shift-W and Shift-E again to key it. Now I've got an animation, and I can start to stack in the rest of my pieces. I'll choose Display, Show, Last Hidden, and bring my elements in. Here's how I'll do this to make it easy. I'll go to Panels, Perspective, Camera, choose my camera again, and work in maybe a 4 view, sliding the elements back and forth until as I pull back, they show up in the right place. As you can see right here, I just passed through a building, so I need to move that one over. I'll pick it, pull it over. I'll pick the middle buildings and pull them in. And there I go through the trees, so those need to move over as well. There's the eco, and so forth. I'll get this positioned and show it when I'm done. So I've finished moving and scaling and positioning the elements to go with my dolly and my camera. When I scrub on the timeline then, you can see where I've had to position things correctly. I start close in on the far city, pull back through the middle city and by the crane, coming close to a couple of near buildings, and all the way back here to reveal the hill, the trees, and the eco in silhouette. Now I don't mind if the sky is a little off here. It gives me a good idea of how much I need to paint eventually if I'm doing a matte. Playing this shows me pretty well what my camera's going to do. The last part then is to adjust the tangents on the camera. I'll select my camera, if it isn't selected already, and right-click on the key down on the timeline, and choose Tangents, Plateau. I usually like to plateau tangents unless a camera needs to whip into a space. I want to give the audience a chance to see what they're seeing, to focus on it, before I dart off to a new view. I'll do the same at the end, right-clicking on the keyframe, and choosing Tangents, Plateau. Now I'll play it again. It's a fast dolly back over 3 seconds, but definitely sets the stage of the eco viewing the whole city. I can always expand out the time if I need, but this gives me a really good idea very quickly of what I'm after in a storyboard. When I'm ready to render this, I can batch render, even in Maya software, very, very quickly. In the render settings, I'll get set up for a batch render. In this case, I'll do sequences and put them together in another program. I'll make sure I'm using name_number.extension and putting my frame padding at 3, so I get zeros, as we can see up here at the top. I've named my file, my project is set, and I'll make sure it goes from 1 to 72. Also, I'm going to make sure I have the correct camera chosen, in my case camera 2, and the size is right. When I'm ready, under Render, I'll choose Batch Render. As you can see down in the command line, Maya will start to render out those frames fairly quickly. I'll put these together and show the final movie of this part of the animatic. This is the final movie made from those images rendered out of Maya. I hit play, we'll see it play. This is the animatic rendered as a QuickTime movie. Although it feels a bit fast, that's easily adjusted on the timeline. What's important here is I have a very good idea in this animatic, from very easy to draw storyboard layers, how it's supposed to look, what's in the frame, what's not, and how am I ending up. I can see at the end here that I do in fact see the eco in silhouette looking at the city. In the next steps, we'll look at modeling, we'll look at texturing, we'll look at animating, based on what we see here in this camera. Now understandably there's going to be some tweaking involved, but I'd rather know going in, what do I need, than having to make the world and figure out how to show it later.